It's Saturday, November 15th, and for the first time in a minute, we actually have a real risk of severe weather up here in the Northeast. This is going to be in far eastern Ohio, far western Pennsylvania, and far northern West Virginia. This is going to be exclusively for a damaging wind risk. There is currently no risk highlighted for hail or tornadoes by the SPC. I think there might be a chance for a weak spin up tornado, but that risk is going to be pretty much close to zero. That is why the SPC has not highlighted it yet. And then for this other area of potential thunderstorm activity in Southern California, this will be for some thunderstorms, of course, but also for a pretty serious flooding threat, potentially kind of impacting the greater Los Angeles area. And this is what the radar is going to look like up here in the Northeast for our severe weather risk area. It's going to start off with a little bit of a cold front, warm front complex up here. That's going to lend quite a bit of favorable shear for these storms. That's one of the reasons why, despite there being pretty much no moisture and no instability, that the Storm Prediction Center thinks that we could see a couple of swaths of damaging winds because the shear parameters are just going to be so good for that. So in this first round, probably pushing through not our main risk area, but areas highlighted by that greater thunderstorm chance, we could see maybe a couple of stronger storms. Probably not severe though, because this convection mode is going to be quite messy. That's really going to hinder how strong these storms can get. Now, something you'll notice in our actual severe risk area is that the convection mode is going to be a little less messy, even though it looks probably a little bit too messy on this HRRR scan right here for us to really get a whole lot of anything. That's kind of why this is more of a conditional risk at the moment, but we're still going to kind of prepare for a risk where we do see 60-mile-an-hour damaging winds. But down here, we could see maybe a pretty strong squall kind of develop with a couple of embedded areas of some strong damaging gusts. And then we could see that our shear vectors aren't going straight into our line. This could lend maybe the chance for a spin up tornado, although I think that chance is going to be pretty much zero. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of rain, pretty much starting from the early afternoon all the way to sunset. We could see that even when the low level jet kicks in down here for our line. I think this could possibly be when we see a peak in our intensity, when we'll definitely see the most severe warnings. But kind of north of our main risk area, I think this is just going to be for a couple of isolated damaging gusts and a lot of wind and rain. Now, transitioning to our Southern California risk area. Once again, this is not for any severe weather of any kinds, although I definitely don't think that we're not going to see any strong gust. I definitely do think we could see a lot of wind, but the main thing is going to be a lot of rain. We actually have a moderate risk of flash flooding in this area, and that's because in the greater Los Angeles metro, we could see a lot of kind of isolated areas of up to 6 or 7 inches of rain and then widespread 4 inches. And this is an area which has received rain for the past couple of days, multiple times in large quantities. So the ground's probably already a little bit saturated, and that will lend itself to a greater risk of flash flooding. And it looks like rain is probably going to persist all the way from sunrise to sunset here today. Maybe you'll get a break if you're right on the coast by the late afternoon as we go into the sunset hours, but it looks like this is going to be brought on by a slow pressure center off the coast and then a couple of fronts. So we're going to have a cold front, and then also an occluded front moving onshore as well. And this is a better look at that actual flood risk highlighted by the Storm Prediction Center. In the moderate red risk, you could see a couple of areas that might reach up to 6 or 7 inches of total rainfall. In the yellow, there probably could be a couple of areas up to 4 inches of rainfall, definitely widespread 3 inches. And then in the green, that's going to be just a very marginal risk. After all, it is a marginal risk, maybe just 1 to 2 inches in that area, with a couple of isolated areas receiving up to 3 inches. And this is what our jet stream looks like, kind of making all of our weather happen the way it is. We can kind of see quite a bit of forcing moving into our main risk area up here in the Northeast, right when I definitely do think that severe weather risk is going to kind of maximize in the mid to late afternoon to evening hours in our main risk area. And then also this forcing will also help to just bring quite a few more storms in that general thunderstorm risk area as well. And actually, as we see kind of a dip in this jet stream, this is going to start to bring in some cooler weather. So we're actually also going to see a bit of a cool down in the far northern US. We'll talk about that in a second. Then, of course, we have that cyclone rotating off the Pacific coast of the SoCal area. Then we also just see more forcing kind of coming onshore, which is going to kind of work in tandem with that cold front to bring a lot of those thunderstorms and then quite a bit of that rain, which we just talked about. And here is what I was just kind of touched on when we were looking at the jet stream with some colder temperatures in the far northern US. Of course, the Northeast still going to remain pretty chilly, but in parts of northern Montana, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and even the far northern parts of Michigan and the Michigan Peninsula, you're going to start to see the temperatures drop. And as we go into the night, you're almost certainly going to see the heat index fall to freezing levels. And then also those temperatures are going to creep even further. So probably Sunday morning, this is what we're looking like. Our line of anywhere between mid 40s to kind of 50s heat index or feels like temperatures is going to creep all the way down to central Kansas, Missouri, and then kind of below the Midwest as well, with our freezing line probably still encompassing those states that I originally was talking about in the areas that are going to get colder. So that's that for the temperatures. Now, moving on, the final thing we're going to touch on is going to be a weather sounding in our severe weather risk area up there in the Northeast today. And we can see that there's not really a whole lot of instability and there's not really a whole lot of moisture. So what's making this severe weather risk possible? It's going to be these extremely favorable shear parameters, specifically in the lower levels, definitely is going to aid in helping these storms produce some stronger severe gusts. A couple of things to note also, our bulk shear is going to be quite high, nearing 70 knots. That is going to be super duper favorable for these clusters to get organized and also produce these gusts. And this is also the reason why I said there isn't a 0 chance of a tornado, also because our cloud base is going to be low enough, but it's going to be very, very close to 0 because the instability is just really not there. And then also, one of the reasons why we could see our storms kind of fire later is because we have this capping inversion right here. So it might really wait until that forcing really, really kicks in the late afternoon. And also when that cold front really sharpens up, it might need both of those to act in tandem to actually get our storms to shoot up.